Hey, what's up you guys? Bloody Jacob here to bring you another action movie QMR, quick movie reviews. This time we're going to be talking about Knockoff from 1998, On Deadly Ground from 1994, along with The Perfect Weapon released in 1991, I Am Wrath in 2016, and Safe in 2012.
Jacob here, meeting my icon, Catherine Isabel here.
Kicking things off by talking about Knockoff, released in 1998 and starring Jean-Claude Van Damme as well as Rob Schneider on IMDb. We'll go from there again. It says a fashion designer must join forces with a CIA agent to combat terrorism. And yeah, that's again the basically the bare bones plot of it. But yeah, a little bit more of a description on Google here. Fashion designer Marcus Ray has been selling knockoff jeans in Hong Kong, but he's about to get caught, and not just by his partner, Tommy, who's an undercover CIA agent, Marcus's boss, Karen, but also CIA is threatening to throw the book at him too if he doesn't prove he's gone straight. But nothing is what it seems, and other forces are conspiring against the fashion designer, including KGB operatives and Russian double agents. So yeah, Knockoff. I got the DVD here. This is one I've been meaning to talk about for a little while now, one I've been eager to watch for a little while, and I did just a few days ago. Obviously stars Jean-Claude Van Damme, a unique, co-star combination with Rob Schneider there, of course, typically known as a comedian. So this one is a little different. It was also, I should also say, it was directed by Tasu Hark. And this is one I've been, again, eager to watch, but it has like a pretty mixed reception even from, fans of Van Damme's, I noticed. And but by the way, the cover I used on the picture here, I do prefer to this one. This one just seems a little, cheap and basic, but it is what it is. The DVD wasn't a bad price. I needed to have it in my collection, just like every other Van Damme film. So, I've just seen a lot of people complain about either like the editing or Van Damme's character having too many moments that are filled in by stuntmen or something like that. But I'm not really sure why really why it's so bad in general. I honestly had a good time with this movie. I thought it was quite a bit of fun. Is it in my top 10 of Van Damme's? No, but I I really like all of Van Damme's movies. I love quite a few of them as well. I think I could put this one within like top 15, maybe top 20, somewhere within that initial range. And that seems like a lot, but when you see how many movies Van Damme did or even starred in, that's pretty high up, I guess. I honestly like Knockoff. I honestly liked Knockoff. And it's kind of funny. It's a bit of a spoiler, I guess. But since it does, say it in the, in the synopsis on IMDb and Google and everything, I guess it's not that big of a deal. Rob Schneider actually being the undercover CIA agent, that's kind of, weird, twist around. Like if one of them was actually CIA, you would think it would be Van Damme's character, ironically, right? But no, it's Rob Schneider, yet Van Damme fights as, still as crazy as he does and everything. I mean, they touch on his character's past a little. And it's actually a decent scene between him and one of the female characters in the film. Though they don't really explain too well on why he can fight like Jean-Claude Van Damme. But it's fine. It's just one of those things. I thought the fight scenes are fun. It has like a different zing and energy to it, I think. It is sort of more of a Hong Kong style action film with the way it's done and choreographed and stuff like that. I think it has a good energy to it, good vibes throughout the whole runtime, if that makes any sense. And the fight scenes I enjoyed, quite well. It's constant and it's always engaging. And yeah, you can tell there's a stuntman used in Van Damme's place, periodically, for whatever the reason. I can't imagine he would have needed one, for his own sake at the time, because it was only 1998. He wasn't that old yet. And he's like 58 now, and he's still in great shape, by the way. But for whatever reason, he's in there periodically. But Van Damme himself, you can tell there's still shots in certain angles they do where you can tell it's Van Damme still doing something. So I don't see why that holds too much negatives against it. I don't think it took away from the movie too many times. I don't think it's obvious to the point of being, silly or, just distracting or anything like that either. So I'm not sure. Also, our main female character here, played by, Leela Rachin. I know I've just seen her in something on some kind of other TV series recently. Let's see. I know I've seen her before. Sorry, I should look this up already. Let's see. Okay, I'm not sure, but I know I've seen her in something of her many roles over the past couple of decades. But she is good, quite good as well. You also have Paul Serrano. So a good cast. Worked well together. For the most part. And, like I said, it's not necessarily as memorable as some of, like, Van Damme's classics, but I think it's one that definitely flew under the radar, and it's one that's definitely underrated by critics and fans alike, it seems. I don't know, maybe I'm too easy on, Van Damme or some of my movies I like in general, I'm not sure. But I set out to enjoy movies, personally, so I, I take what fondness I have for out of it whenever I can. But yeah, if I've had to rate this, I also the fight on the ship and the climax is a lot of fun as well. But anyway, if I had to rate it, I'm giving it like a 85, 86%. Honestly, I liked it quite well. I think it was very solid, actually. And also, Van Damme and Rob Schneider are pretty hilarious together too. Really, it's not a cop movie necessarily, but it has that buddy cop sort of dynamic to it. And they're doing these races through the city. Van Damme's pulling on the wagon basically, and Schneider gets the idea to keep whipping him, and Van Damme keeps looking back and yelling at him, and I don't know, just simple things like that. It just flowed quite well for some reason. Next up, we're going to be kind of switching tones here in a couple different ways. We're going to be talking about On Deadly Ground, which came out in 1994 and stars Steven Seagal. IMDb says a mystical martial artist environmental agent takes on the ruthless oil corporation, or according to Google, says Forrest Taft is putting his considerable talents as a fighter and marksman to use as a hired gun for the sleazy oil tycoon Michael Jennings, Michael Caine. He was in this movie. The latter's bottom line tunnel vision has him destroying an entire community if it means a bigger profit for business. While in Alaska taking care of some business for his boss, however, Taft meets a native woman who helps him to discover the error of his ways and pursue a more righteous path. And so this was one that Steven Seagal both produced and especially directed himself. Now, if you know anything about how Steven Seagal is, he does try to control a lot of the films, even if he's not directing it or anything. But this is one, he actually directed. I did buy the DVD for cheap for just a couple or a few dollars at a local store near me. And I've been giving Steven Seagal a chance lately. I did honestly enjoy films like Marked for Death, Out for Justice. What else did I have down there? Above the Law to some extent as well. But here's the thing, Steven Seagal is no Jean-Claude Van Damme. he had a handful or two of decent, pretty good action movies in the 80s and 90s, but only a handful or two. Van Damme has almost a whole filmography full of those or better. So I'm running out of Steven Seagal things here to really talk about in a positive light. And I do enjoy Steven Seagal in certain particular movies, I guess, for what he is, if I'm in the right mood. On Deadly Ground, I had some positivity or optimism towards Michael Caine as the main bad guy. Of course, a lot of people know him for his tremendous work as Alfred in the Dark Knight movies of recent years, but he's been doing some really fine and consistent work for decades now. Just look up his bio. You also have John C. McGinley, who's a really good sort of character actor as well, even in something random like, again, a recent Stand Against Evil. He's also on a show called Burnos I liked a lot, and again, you could go through his bio as well. Excuse the sound notification there. And the random facial hair in your face. Yeah, anyway. Okay, so positive. So positive is once it gets to like 55, 57, basically an hour, or 60 minutes into it, there are some pretty solid action scenes in the movie that I did like. There's a shootout at a house, and the refinery climax isn't too bad actually, but it's getting there. That feels like the chore, and it does kind of feel like a chore, unfortunately. Seagal is fine in the movie. He's about the same in everything. And sometimes he has like this weird charisma or energy too, and I can kind of get into like some of those other movies I mentioned at the start of this portion of the review. But here, it basically feels like another factory sort of performance from him, and it's fine if you're in the right mood. Michael Caine, he's good. According to Seagal, he had a good time working on this movie, but another source said Michael Caine also said it's the worst movie he was ever in, so believe whichever you will. He's good here as, this, corrupt, sort of, tycoon or whatever you want to say. McGinley is probably the highlight on the villain end from a physicality standpoint anyway. There's also this older actor at the time who played Hugh. He's one of the foremans and an old friend of Taft's. Richard Hamilton played him. I thought he was particularly a nice presence on screen as well. Arlie Ermey, he also got to mention, who just passed away not too long ago. Still particularly memorable, from those Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies in the 2000s, but again, he had another career that spanned decades. He's not in it nearly enough, though, but still good to see him, and this is also an early, sort of a small role from Billy Bob Thornton, too. So again, the cast, was pretty damn attractive on this, but there's just something about it, especially that first hour or so. The themes here, are of course good, and relevant, even now it's getting, worse with the environment and, how people are treating the earth and stuff like that, and it just feels really on the nose, though, really sort of either forced or just sort of heavy-handed. I guess there's the whole speech you see from Seagal at the end of the movie. That's like a 5 or 7 minutes. I guess it's gonna be like a whole 40-minute montage of clips and stuff like that. Didn't go too well with test screenings with some rambunctious fans, to say the least, apparently. So they made Seagal cuts about 7 minutes. But even that scene, it's only 7 minutes, and it feels a bit stretched out. And again, good purpose. Seagal really trying to reach his ethical side there or something. I don't know. It just feels a bit out of place, and I just don't really buy Steven Seagal in a role like that as well. Like having this honor about him for some reason. It didn't quite work that way. And then the native thing, it feels like they're really just going for like every other stereotype you've seen on him throughout all these movies. I don't know. It just felt like a bit of a drag. It was a bit dull for me. So I don't know. I just don't really care to talk too much more about this movie. I'm giving it like a C minus, or I'll stick with a C minus, somewhere in that C minus range. You know what the percentages are for that. So yeah, and next up, we're gonna be talking about The Perfect Weapon, which starred Jeff Speakman and came out in 1991. And this is one I've been meaning to watch for a while. It was directed by Mark DeSalle, written by David C. Wilson. Also starring some, another memorable actor from a lot of these genre films, James Hong. Also, Kerry Hayoki Tagawa. I probably just butchered his name, but you guys will certainly recognize them even if you can't pronounce the names either. But The Perfect Weapon was one for me that's been really on my head, because my brother, this is one of his favorite movies when he was growing up. Jeff Speakman he sees as one of those action stars that just never had the chance to become, like a Van Damme or even a Seagal or something like that, for whatever the reason. Although he did almost basically star in that Speed movie and stuff like that. So I ended up watching this both as the genre fan I've become, and as a favorite to my brother, of course, I sort of fast tracked this one, and I'm fairly glad I did. I mean, Speakman, he is legitimate, he is a black belt, and you see a lot of the, Kempo show off in this movie. And, the themes of it, I think, are carried over well, even if the story does feel, pretty typical, for, an 80s, 90s, martial arts action movie. It feels like you've seen this in about 200 other movies. This kind of plot and sort of character themes and such, but it is what it is, and it's not like it's trying to be anything else. And the fights themselves, I feel like any good classic martial arts movie from the time, Speakman absolutely looks very at home in those scenes. The choreography is very, very solid. It feels like a good campy martial arts movie, but yeah, it's pretty damn competent and serious when it comes to scenes like that as well. So you can tell they're respecting the craft, and again, you can tell Speakman is actually being able to pull off everything you see the character doing on screen. So that all looked really good. You have a pretty fine, memorable fight at the end of the climax of the film, I should say. And even some of the flashback scenes I didn't think were too bad either. I actually minded more of those. But they're kind of interwoven to the beginning, as he drove along this long highway at the beginning of the movie. But then he has this dynamic with a younger kid, teenager in the movie as well. Sort of acts as like an influence on him. Mentor, even though he has like this broken sort of childhood and such, and with his brother and everything, the kid starts looking up to him and everything. So that's not a bad dynamic in the movie. But as far as the rest of it, I liked it overall. It is free on YouTube if you just want to search it on there, to see for yourselves. Although I'm sure a lot of genre fans are actually already pretty well aware and have viewed this one before. Like I said, Speakman is really good from a physicality standpoint. As far as acting, he's a bit, he's a bit dry for me. He came across a bit bland and on the dull end of things for me anyway. I can tell, he again really respects the craft, and he knows what he's doing as far as his training. But that's the thing, your guys like Van Damme, or I'm not going to say Seagal, but your Van Dammes, your Dolph Lundgrens, your Schwarzeneggers. By the way, this guy's Arnold Schwarzenegger poster. That's fucking brilliant. Arnold Schwarzenegger's been a hero of mine since I was a little kid. And I had to get one. It's been too long. Yeah, they all had like a certain natural physicality about them, whether it was from bodybuilding or Van Damme's real life kickboxing record, his real dedication to martial arts as well. But they also had like this unique and kind of just sort of magnetic, on-screen presence and charisma to him, like, Stallone's and everything like that, too. I just don't know if Speakman has that. I mean, he comes across like a good-natured guy, but past that, I don't know, he doesn't have a lot of expression when it comes to his acting. I mean, I don't want to dig on him too hard. I mean, I could talk about Seagal all night. But, he certainly deserved more recognition, for the time he came out with this. And I know he's had various health issues as well. But someone like him is probably definitely more deserving of success than someone like Steven Seagal. But I don't know. I just think with another lead that had a bit more of a flair to their on-screen performance from an acting standpoint, I think this movie might have fared even better. But that's just me. And again, it did what it set out to do. It didn't try to do any more than that, so I can't really fault it too much overall. If I had to rate it, I'm giving it like a 74. Well, I don't want to put too close to On Deadly Ground. Let's make it clear. The Perfect Weapon was a lot better than On Deadly Ground, okay? I'm giving it like a 74, 77%, I guess. It's somewhere in there, I suppose. Maybe 75, I'll settle there. But yeah, because letting you guys know about The Perfect Weapon, and just 2 more movies to talk about. Hopefully we don't make this quite 30 minutes, so I might have to speed this up a little bit. But next up, we're going to be talking about I Am Wrath, starring John Travolta from 2016. And yes, we're changing gears a bit here. But I've always been a fairly solid fan of Travolta's, but I've always meant to seek out more of his work as well. There's other films of his I'm pretty eager to watch at some point soon. But I Am Wrath seemed like a pretty easy one to dive into with his work again. I've really liked him in movies like, From Paris with Love, so I want to see him in another, lead action movie like this. And we'll go again from Google because they actually described the movie a little bit. Yeah, wrecked with guilt after the brutal death of his wife, Stanley Hill inflicts his own brand of revenge after the killers escape justice. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Travolta's character, Stanley, he comes home, and eventually his wife is killed in a seemingly, random act of violence, and the movie sort of shows off themes of what's actually becoming, in a scary way, more and more relevant now with, shootings and, kind of debates on, gun control and stuff like that, which we're not going to talk about in this video. But I just thought it was ironic that, that was a lot of this movie as well. Although it doesn't really make that like the big point of the movie, because it does end up, becoming quite chaotic and everything. But this is another movie that set out what it wanted to do, and I think actually succeeded. I mean, at first I was a bit lukewarm on it because there are things that hold this movie back from being a classic or something. But I think John Travolta is more competent and good actor than he's given credit for, and that's even without seeing some of his other, kind of standout films of his. I want to watch Phenomenon soon and things like that. But the scene where he loses his wife, you kind of feel it wrenching on you a little bit. And there's a scene in a church. I think it's like within the last quarter or so of the movie, give or take. It's actually fairly well acted. You can see the emotion of it. Now sometimes where he gets frustrated or agitated, you don't know whether to, get with them or laugh a little bit. I'm not sure. And I think this movie did have sort of a clash in tones. I mean, I was going into it kind of thinking more like a gritty, pretty self-serious action thriller, but it has like a unexpected, fun vibe to it. Once it gets into him meeting his old friend played by Christopher Maloney, who's a good presence in the movie as Dennis, and it turns into like a buddy thing as they kind of go about working with it together, since they served together and everything like that. And there's a bit of a comedic twist to it when that gets introduced, I guess. Then like the next scene will be like the confession scene I just told you about, or something else of that nature. But I've had a couple days to think on it now, and I actually think it was pretty damn solid and good for what it was. I'm pleasantly surprised by it. I'll actually probably be buying it. I mean, yeah, it looks like John Travolta's wearing some sort of toupee or wig or something. He might have just been bald at the time, I don't know. You don't see his hair move too much, but that's besides the point. He's already infinitely better than Steven Seagal for me. Whoops. But this movie has quite a few good shootouts as well. You know, it's rated R, so it doesn't hold back to the violence. Travolta does have a good demeanor about him when it comes to the gunplay and things like that, I think. Just his expression, it's very, you know, steely and focused when he wants to be, and works really well with, you know, Stanley character in this. And some of the best scenes are either that confessional church scene, or it's where you just see him sitting at home watching, you know, old videos with his wife or looking at a picture or something. And I appreciate that about Travolta. I think he almost kind of knocked out of the park with that when he really went for it on that end. And Christopher Maloney is really likable as his old buddy as well. What I didn't care for about the movie, though, also Rebecca De Mornay as Vivian, his wife, I thought was quite nice as well. Although she isn't in it for too long, obviously. Sam Tremmell, who's been in a lot of genre TV, he's fine as well as this corrupt detective. And his daughter, Amanda Schull, who I swear I've seen in something. She's actually pretty good. I actually wanted more of her in the movie. I actually really like this movie, but I don't know. I feel like I gotta rewatch it now. But yeah, where the movie lost me, at least in the first viewing, is that it eventually takes this bigger turn, like his wife's murder is connected to this bigger web of government corruption and conspiracy and stuff like that. And that's fine. I mean, it makes the movie feel more intricate, you know, but I don't know, I just, at the time, I think wanted it to be more straightforward, and this whole government conspiracy thing sort of feels a bit generic. You know, we have so many movies like that these days. So I didn't think it quite needed to go that far with it. I don't know. But besides that, I really don't think there's that much to complain about. I mean, the ending went a bit different than I expected. I mean, it focused on something I didn't expect it to, and closed it off in a manner I wasn't really thinking of, I guess. But yeah, it's a solid action film. I think it's the shootouts are actually shot fairly well, and Travolta makes for a convincing lead as Stanley. So yeah, if I had to rate I Am Wrath, I mean, at first I was gonna, like a day ago, I would have rated it like a C+ or something, like 78 or something, but I was thinking 81% before this review. Now I'm thinking like 84%, 88%, 86 maybe. I don't know. But I think it's worth checking out. I mean, I know it's not a martial arts movie or anything, but I think it's a movie that would have been really successful in that day. And yeah, so it's definitely has me eager to check out more Travolta's work as well, even in recent years. So yeah. And then lastly, we're going to be talking, looks like we're going to be going to 30 minutes, sorry guys. Lastly, we're going to be talking about Safe, starring Jason Statham. Another movie recommended to me by my brother. Not to such a personal level, but one that was singled out for me to check out, you know, to get more on, to dive more into Statham's catalog. And I've liked Jason Statham as well. I've seen a good handful or two of his movies years ago. And obviously with the Hobbs and Shaw craze, you know, it's caused me to seek out more of his work again. I did a review on The Meg and everything, right? May, a young girl whose memory holds a priceless numerical code, finds herself pursued by the Triads, the Russian mob and corrupt New York City cops. Coming to her aid is an ex-cage fighter whose life was destroyed by gangsters on May's trail. And yeah, right away, the best thing about this movie, I do have it on Blu-ray here. The best thing about this movie is the dynamic between Statham and the kid there, May. This is probably one of Statham's better actual acting performances I've seen. The scene where his life is initially destroyed, as to with his wife, of course, and stuff like that. And just some of the more grounded scenes with him and the kid just sort of spending time together and just sort of getting to know one another. It's definitely the best in the movie. And the young actress who played May, I thought was pretty good. And yeah, James Holland comes up again in this video. He's one of our main villains here. You also have Anson Mount, known for Hell on Wheels, and yeah, there was that mutant series or whatever it was. They did on ABC, which wasn't that successful. But he has a good demeanor here as one of the villains near the end of the movie. And yeah, Safe was pretty good. I mean, it has a constant kind of fast paced to it that I kind of liked. Like I said, probably one of Statham's best acting performances. There's some good shootings. I won't say there's one particular fight scene that I found too memorable, though. I could have used a little bit more of that. But what there is, it's frantic. It has the right vibe to it. And I don't want to compare Steven Seagal and Jason Statham too much, because I do think Statham is significantly better than Seagal, when he wants to be anyway. But they both have a tendency to have a lot of the roles and characters feel very similar to each other. And that's kind of the case of Statham here. He just ends up wearing like a fancy, black collared jacket with like a white collared shirt underneath and everything. How many movies have we seen him wear that, right? And he just his characters always end up acting the same way. They tend to start from the same type of points. I don't know. It just feels like they could be the same character in every movie. I don't, Statham, he does the kind of movies he does. I don't care in the mood for him or in the mood for him. Just like with Seagal, although I think that's a different thing altogether. If you're in the right mood for it, it works for you, and I think it's one of the better ones you'll see from that crop of films. But otherwise, it feels a bit typical, a bit too similar to other Statham movies that are out there. Not bad though, not a waste of time at all. Like I said, it may be one of Statham's best actual acting performances. There's some decent chase scenes as well. But besides that, it's kind of there for me. I was expecting to like it a bit more than I did. But yeah, if I had rated, I'm giving like an 80%. I guess another one of those I set out what I wanted to do and did it. But just it's pretty much the same as every other Statham film. I don't know. But yeah, so I have more thoughts on it, but this is going to 31 minutes now, so I gotta stop. It's like 3 in the morning. So yeah, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.